Okay, good afternoon. Before I get started, just want to open up with a couple words about Terry and Kim and what they're going through, and let them know that our thoughts and our prayers are with them. What they've done for me, for my family, for this team, in this city in Western New York, just being there for them. All of us collectively offering our prayers, our support, and giving them the privacy that they need, I think is important during this time. So I know you'll have some questions. I respect those questions, but I also know that I know what's important right now, and that is that we're all thinking of them and supporting them every way we can. So with that, I'll turn it over to you, and we'll go from there.
Coach, you're spending the night, you're putting in these extra hours. Julie being Lucy's mom asked you over the weekend about how did you manage, work and real life. Knowing how close you are with this roster, what will make the ultimate sacrifice?
Yeah, I mean, let's go back. I'm aware of that message that went out. The accuracy in what I said is this, I used to spend the night in the office, and it was about work-life balance. And I spent a lot of time here, we as coaches, and there's a lot of people that spend a lot of time in this building working hard so that we get the results that we so desire. But I also believe in being a good dad at home, so and taking a lot of pride in that. So having said that, we do what we can. The goal is the goal, and after a few days this week, we're going to unplug a little bit to get away. Speaking of balance, and enjoy a little bit of what life has to offer, and I think that perspective is good. And then we fire back up at the end of July, and we get this thing cranked up all the way here. So I'm looking forward to that. But in between now and then, we've got a couple of days of work in front of us, and then get some rest here. So,
how critical is this week for, I guess, buttoning things up before training camp, especially for new coaches like Ken, coordinators like Matthew Smiley, just make sure everything's set before you guys hit the ground running in training camp?
Yeah, it's huge. You want to be able to kind of throw all the paint on the palette over the course of the spring, and then really start to chisel it down so that when you come back for training camp, you've got a good, defined and clear plan as to what you want to do, how you want to approach it, how you want to attack things, and how you see, at least on the surface, at the beginning of it all, training camp unfolding.
Sean, there were reports that Jordan Poyer is here for a mandatory minicamp. Can you confirm, is he here?
He is here, Heather. Yep, he is here.
How important is that to get him back in the building after not being here for OTAs and things like that?
Yeah, it's important. He's one of the leaders of our team. It's good to see his face in here, on a personal level, and then just to get him around the team, and I'm sure those guys are happy to see him as well. So it looks like he's been working, and we're looking forward to spending some time with him the next couple of days.
With respect to, the heartfelt, and I think everybody's thinking about him right now. What in uniqueness, or what is it about the Pegulas that maybe differs from other ownership groups, or what have they brought to you during your time here?
Oh man, I don't want to get into comparing and contrasting. I don't think that's healthy. In my mind, they're the best owners in the NFL, and I'm probably biased, but that's how I feel in my heart. I think if you just look at what they've done for Western New York, what they've done for this organization, for the multiple organizations and companies that they own around here, and then personally what they've done for me and my family, I don't know that I'll ever be able to repay them. So we love them, and more than anything, we just want to be there for them right now.
Sean, attendance-wise, anyone not present so far this week?
No, everyone's here.
Look at your quarterback room that you have this year. Case is new to the team. Matt is new again. He was on the team, but Joe Brady is new quarterback coach. What do you think you have in this new quarterback's room, and I guess how do you think it could help Josh as he moves on in his NFL career?
Well, that's an interesting room every year, but it's an important room, just the same, Maddie. And we were talking a little bit about this yesterday, and the personalities that are in that room, the experience in some ways that is in that room, it's got to work together and fit together like a puzzle because of the importance of that position and how that relates to winning football games. So it's an interesting dynamic because Josh is obviously, the guy in that room right now, and those other two players have to support Josh, but at the same time get themselves ready to go. So, but with very limited reps. So I've always said the backup quarterback position in the NFL is a hard one because of what comes with the job description. So, but Joe and the way he fits into that room personality-wise, and then what he's been able to do to this point in his career with his experience, I think really bodes well for that group as a whole.
You signed Greg Van Routen. Why and what do you see in him?
Yeah, so Greg has tremendous experience. Obviously, he's played in the division for a window of his career. Was in Carolina. I did not overlap with Greg there, but saw his body of work from afar. We have a lot of respect for Greg and what he's been able to do through his career, and I think it's a good addition for us in terms of the competition, the experience. He has position flexibility as well. So had a few minutes this morning to be around Greg, and to this point, he's been a great addition.
Other injury besides, Butker's obviously coming back from surgery, but anybody else hurt that precipitated, let's bring in another guy?
Nothing new. No, nothing new.
John, did you get any feedback from the guys who went out with Matt Miller for the pass rush summit? Any of those young guys bring back anything that you've heard? Or
Yeah, that was a cool deal, right? Where they can get out there and invitation only, and they can get out there and be around not only Vaughn in a setting like that, but also the other pass rushing specialists that were out there, experts, right? Hands-on, and the thing that those guys all came back with was just, I think you come back, how couldn't you come back with confidence? A little bit more confidence than what you had before, right? Just by being around that environment. So within that, you could ask those guys individually what they each individually came back with, but I think you come back with a little sense of confidence, a little boost of confidence when you're around that.
To Mark's question about the offensive line, you've added some experience there. Was that a point of emphasis this offseason to maybe get some more experience depth up front?
Jay, I would say yes and no. I would say from an experience standpoint, didn't have to be experience, but depth and competition, yes. The game is won up front on both sides of the ball, so we were able to do some things offensively with that, to your point, up front, and I think you've got to be able to control that line of scrimmage, and you got to know what you got coming out of training camp, and we've got to A, establish the line of scrimmage, and B, protect our quarterback.
What have you seen from Savage and Jimmy Salgado as they move positions? I know you're new coaches, but these are guys who have been on staff but in new roles. How do you see them acclimating to their new roles?
I heard Jimmy Salgado, who was the first one.
Bobby, yeah.
I've been very impressed with those two. The continuity piece is there, but when you're changing roles, that's a little bit of a challenge in terms of how you're viewed internally. I've been through that before, and those two work their tails off to prepare themselves for the next step. And in this case, Jimmy moved over to the safeties and Bobby to the linebackers. So, you want a challenge too at times. A new challenge is exciting. It's new, and it challenges you to adjust as a coach. So they're going through some minor growing pains here and there, but they're both very diligent and thorough in their approach. And I know that when they get to training camp, it'll run a little bit even smoother than it did in this spring time here.
Sean, what have you seen out of OJ Howard
so far and what might his role be in this team?
Well, here's another experienced player, right, with a tremendous amount of potential and talent. He was drafted in the first round for a reason. He had the injury in Tampa. I think the key for him is getting off on the right start. He works his butt off to get our playbook down, and you've seen him make some plays out there already. And I think he's going to have a great training camp. He's finishing off a good spring, and he gets better every day. So when we put the pads on, that's when the real football begins, and I think we'll know a little bit more come training camp.
Coach, what has Ken Dorsey's presence been like at offensive coordinator, and what elements does he have that suits this offense to be more explosive?
Well, first I'd say he's played at a high level, and if you've been around Doris a little bit, you've seen the fire that he has, that he brings, the competitive nature that he has. It's important when you coach that you can see it through the eyes of the helmet, right? You've got to be able to put yourself in the player's position in order to get them in position to make plays and be successful. Ken's worn that helmet, so he's been those eyes. And then when you're coaching through the offensive lens, it's usually coaching through the eyes of the quarterback, and he's played that position. So he is, to me, very qualified to do that at a high level.
How do you work through that process when you have a new guy in a role like that, like you did a few years ago with Ryan? But from a head coaching perspective, just the interaction in terms of he's going to come to the table with new ideas, obviously. How do you work through those new ideas from a head coaching perspective with him? What's the interaction like?
Yeah, there's balance to that. I've been on the other side of that again as a first-time coordinator. There's challenges right from that side, and so what I try and do is use my own experience of my first days, my first year or two on the job in that role, albeit was on the defensive side. The challenges are very similar, and then now through a head coach's lens of just trying to give him the space he needs to put his signature on it, yet at the same time impress upon him some things that I know that were conversations that I had with Brian of the past, and now Ken, and getting him up to speed through that area as well. But also, some lessons learned along the way in terms of, okay, here's training camp. Here's what you want to think about. I think he's done a phenomenal job this spring, and now getting himself ready for that training camp window of time.
Sean, whether it be
Go ahead.
okay, thank you. Whether it be on that note, like in terms of terminology or whatever, how much further ahead, maybe you have a gauge of it at this point, are you with having promoted Ken from within, as opposed to having had to go outside of the organization to bring in another coordinator?
Yeah, I would think Adam just steps ahead. I mean, just light years ahead. It's whenever you bring someone new in, you're talking about not only new plays, but new terminology, new words, and really didn't want to get into that if we could avoid it because of Josh in particular amongst all the rest of the core that was already intact here. So that's just the minute he got the job, it was boom, and you say, okay, well, you don't want to take that for granted, but we did look. I mean, we looked out there to make sure we were making the right decision, and it felt good about it.
Growth have you seen in Dane Jackson, given the experience that he got last year stepping in for Trey?
Yeah, Dane's a winner. And when whether it was his first season, Jay, when he played through splashes of time, he went out there and performed, and that's hard to do as a rookie. And then last season as well, Trey goes down, Dane steps in, finished off the Saints game and didn't miss a beat. So are there things he can do better? Yeah, and he's working his butt off to do that. There's things we can all do better. But that's what I love about Dane is he is committed. He's one of the first ones here every morning, one of the last to leave. Comes in on his own, even on the weekends at times, and he's a true pro.
Similar note to that, now that you've gotten to spend time with Poyer, has anything stood out about him? How has the spring been going for him?
I would say, what stands out about him first is his professionalism for a young man, a young player. Probably a lot of that comes from who he is and how he was supported at home because of his family and the way that they've been around the NFL. Other than that, you've seen him out there with the second group, some with the first group. It may continue to mix and match, and he's been going through the normal rookie growing pains. you have a good play. How do you follow it up with another good play? You have a bad play. How do you reset and come back and have a good play? So a lot of it's mental as much as anything.
Add a player or two with a lot of time in this league. It's a good thing, right, to get him in the building. You've added 3, Daquan, Vaughn, and Roger Saffold. What is it like having those presences in the room because they've been a part of OTAs, and what are those conversations been like with you?
Yeah, those are veteran players that have seen a lot of football and through different teams, right, through the lenses of different teams, different head coaches, had different teammates. I just try and get around those guys as much as I can, as well as the other veterans. And you mentioned Greg earlier, Van Routen, being around Greg this morning, sitting at a breakfast table with him, and I think it was Case and Mitch Morris had just gotten up before that, and so I learned by being around those conversations because there's so much experience built into those guys through years of playing, through years of seeing different organizations, how things are done. And we're always trying to learn.
Can you see something like that, or like the pass rush summit translate on the field? Like, is it too early to see if it's helping younger guys, or can you already sense it now?
It's for the linemen, it's hard to see that translate now because the rules are the way that they are in the spring. So I think we'll see more of that in training camp in particular. What will happen is guys will leave here, they'll go home, go to the places where they will train, and their training will ramp up. We as coaches try and ramp down a little bit and get away, but now's the time that their training will ramp up, or it should be ramping up, and they'll be working on some of those things that they picked up a few weeks back.
How difficult is the challenge going to be in training camp, I guess? You've got all these wide receivers, and some of these guys that you're probably going to have to cut are going to be good enough to play in this league. How difficult is that going to be to figure out who's going to come out of that competition? There's only one ball.
Yeah.
I mean, that sounds like a challenge.
Well, it is. It's a good challenge, though. You want to have good football players. Making those hard decisions that's hard. I mean, you've heard me say that before. I don't look forward to that week of camp. That's a tough week for any human being, right? That said, between now and then is going to be good for the fans that are up at training camp. Should be good for them to watch the competition. There's going to be a lot of competition up there and guys vying for jobs. And so we'll come out of it hopefully with the key is to come out with the right number, whatever that number is. If it's 7, if it's 6, if it's 5, whatever that number is, that we come out with the right 5 or 6 or 7.
Surprised you, Sean, but Brandon Bean talked about this last week about Josh Allen. He's out there on a Wednesday night playing golf in Vegas, and he's on a plane and at the next practice. I mean, a lot's been said about Josh, but how does that, just continue? How much does that impress you in the commitment that this guy has showed, given, how busy his schedule's been?
Yeah. Now's the time of year to do some of that stuff. As I mentioned earlier, we start to break camp here in a couple days. It's going to be, hey, it's time to focus. And I know Josh does a great job of getting himself and his body and his mind ready to go. And but when you're invited to those things, he also knows he has a commitment back here, and that to me, in the way he handled that as a professional and in particular as a leader of this football team, I think again just added to the stack of things that he's done, and he doesn't do it for show. He's authentic and genuine in his approach, and I think more than anything, that's what really makes him who he is. His agenda is the right agenda.
You guys have the run game going more towards the end of last season. Does it get any harder to carry that over now that you have Ken in charge instead? Like, are there any challenges of changing personnel and carrying that to the next season?
Look, I think it's always, as mentioned earlier, as asked earlier about continuity. You always start a couple steps ahead when you do have continuity. In this case, we were starting from the back of the pack a little bit. That's a challenge, and so what comes with that is spending as much time together as we can, those coaches getting on the same page with how we want to do it, go back through our core runs of last season. Let's talk about that. Let's talk about how we were teaching that. Let's talk about the landmark. Here's the line blocking. What's the landmark of the running back on this particular play? And basically everyone getting on the same page. And I thought, led by Ken and his leadership, Coach Cromer, Coach Brady, Skip has done. They've all done a great job of getting together, getting on the same page. Coach Boris as well. And I'm excited about the young coaches on the staff as well, offensively and defensively. So I've been very happy with the way the staff has come together.
From trusting the process to finding a way from playoff caliber to championship caliber, right? So what's the model that will make this team Super Bowl caliber this year?
You're great, man. You are great. Listen, just taking it one day at a time, really. Taking it one day at a time. Obviously we know the noise that's out there. When you're doing things right and when you're having success, that's going to be there. That's what we've worked for, quite honestly. Where we've come from in the last 5 years to where we are now, there's been a lot of hands in that. And I'm extremely grateful for that and proud of this organization. And Terry and Kim, let's not forget what they've done, right? As I mentioned earlier, and what they've meant to this. So, we'll see where this season goes. I'm excited about it. As I said earlier, when I think I spoke at the outset of spring, right now it's names on a paper. And we've got to bring those names to life, and the team has to come together. So how we handle distractions, the commitment level that we all commit to one another as a team, and how this thing comes together ultimately will govern where we go.
Last two, please.
You mentioned training camp, obviously going to be in Rochester. Just the opportunity to have the team go away, where the last couple of years, obviously that hasn't been an option. Just what's the team excitement level? Looking forward to that. Obviously, a couple of weeks away.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to going to training camp. I love going to St. John Fisher. I love going to Rochester and that area around Rochester. I really think it's a cool place to be. I think it's a great place to be that time of year in particular. You have those, warmer, hotter days at times, which we need to get us in shape, and then the cooler nights. And I think it's a great place for our team to come together, Jenna. I really do. Some people don't like going to training camp. I don't think anybody really loves sleeping in college dorms. At 48 years old, I can tell you I don't. But I'm willing to do it, right? But that's what we do, right? And that's how a team comes together, through those shared experiences. And we look forward to that in a couple weeks here.
Big said months ago how he was already in Ken Dorsey's ear trying to, build that relationship more and maybe use it to his benefit, get some plays in he likes. How do you see that relationship growing, and how can it help Steph this season?
Yeah, that's, again, one benefit of the continuity piece, in this case, Catherine, is the familiarity with one another. So if it were a newer coach, Steph may not be as comfortable to have that dialogue at this point, at this early point. So those two have a good relationship, and I know this about Ken is he embraces that growth mindset, and he listens, and ultimately it'll be his call in terms of what we do. But I think they have a nice relationship, and it is important that we get Steph the ball. So.